I've been coming to some really interesting realizations about people pleasers like me and how we sometimes react to people who are very clear, very structured, and very to the point. Honestly, it can feel a little uncomfortable. And I've learned that if you've struggled in your personal relationships, that reaction's actually coming from your nervous system. They're like echoes from the past experiences and relationships you've had. I have not met a people pleaser that wasn't raised in either a perfectionistic or a shaming home. There was some disruption to the relationships. So we grew up feeling like we had to earn love or validation. Simple things might not feel easy or safe by default. So you start looking for safer places to be, places that feel less emotionally risky. Even when we know we're in a business relationship, people pleasers can get tripped up when they start to hope that they found a really trustworthy friend. So when the other person just wants to get down to business, it can kind of feel like something important is missing. And that discomfort is often an echo from those earlier experiences where just relaxing and trusting just didn't go well. And this really landed for me just recently because I was uncomfortable with a project partner I just started working with. He sticks very closely to structure, and I wanted to talk through a possible change. Could we do it this way? And he just kind of scrunched up his face and said he didn't want to change anything yet. And he said it abruptly. I immediately thought, oh no, I don't think he likes me. I took it personally, but it wasn't personal. Then he said, can you just send me a mock-up? Like, I don't understand what you're saying. I convinced myself that he was just humoring me, that he was going to dismiss it outright. And when we checked in a couple of days later, he said, you know what? I love this idea. And he told me that he was worried that this change would slow us down and affect the deadline. He wasn't thinking about me. He was thinking about the task. And once we talked it through, he understood that I'm kind of sensitive to being dismissed. And I understood that for him, structure comes first. He can be relational, just not at the expense of the timeline. And that's when something clicked for me. Some of us are relational by default. It's a stress response. We notice their tone. We read the room. We look for warmth, connection. We want to feel aligned before we move forward. And that's not a flaw. That's actually a real interpersonal skill. So being relational, it works beautifully, but in friendships, and it matters deeply in healing spaces. But here's the insight I wish I had understood sooner. People pleasing isn't a personality trait, it's an adaptive stress response. So we have to back up. It develops when we've spent years not feeling seen, heard, or safe in our most important relationships. So then closeness becomes the signal for trust. And when we work with someone who's more task-oriented than people-oriented, that mismatch can feel quite threatening. And it's quick and it's fast. So for decades, I spent way too much time just trying to repair my personal relationships, trying to make those warmer, safer, more mutual and rewarding. And when that wasn't happening, I carried this unmet need straight into my work life. I was basically hoping to make a best friend at work, which is not what work is for. So here's the other side of that dynamic. We need to learn to be transactional in non-personal relationships. Being transactional, it doesn't mean being cold. It means being clear, being focused, very outcome-oriented, task-driven. And you know what? I'm actually really good at that. Like when I set my mind to something, I'm amazing. But I just keep looking for connection first. And unknowingly, I was kind of mixing up the two different systems, my personal relationships and my business relationships. And they can intersect, but they need to be separated. And because I kind of mixed up the order, putting this one first, when I got anxious about the dynamics, I felt the need to get closer. And of course, that wasn't great. My energy went into fixing and explaining or smoothing things over and managing people's emotions instead of building the structure and the momentum and the follow through. So we need to separate these and know when they belong where. So quietly, by putting this first, that kind of did a number on my earning capacity. Now, people pleasers do this all the time. And I want to pause here because this is where people start judging themselves. So if you're recovering from unsafe, neglectful, or chronically stressful relationships, your nervous system is going to look for safety. And that's not weakness, that's just how humans are wired. We're meant to live in connection, in communities. And we often will bring that to work. Some of us only have friends at work. We have no life outside of work. So when someone shows us warmth or interest at work, it can feel urgent to make it relational, especially if connection has been scarce outside of work. And that doesn't mean you're wrong. It just means you kind of have to slow the pace. No one judges themselves for being really thirsty on a hot day. And we just need to learn to sip instead of gulping when we find that happening. And relational and transactional skills are both healthy, but it's about context. I mean, you don't want a surgeon who's casual and unfocused and make jokes all the time. You want someone who's going to look at the job. And you don't want an event planner who can't tolerate unpredictability. You want them to get creative and think outside the box when something happens. So problems show up when we get stuck in only one of these two modes. And if you're noticing this pattern in yourself, either this one or this one, that's actually a good sign. It means that you're becoming aware. And awareness is how these patterns get retrained. Because this is important. These reactions were learned. And what's learned can be updated. Now, you're allowed to make mistakes while you learn, even if that wasn't true in your past relationships. It can be true now. And in business, healthy transactional skills look like clarity. And clarity asks for clear prices, clear timelines, clear expectations. And money responds to clarity. And now people pleasers often struggle here because clarity on tasks without feeling this mutual connection can sometimes feel risky. So to feel closer, a people pleaser will over-explain. They wait for this emotional buy-in. They delay the decisions. They take neutral responses a little too personally. They avoid follow-ups. They kind of become invisible. And over time, that leads to underpricing, unpaid labor, exhaustion, resentments, and unpredictable income. That's not a character issue. It's a safety pattern that can be interrupted. Business doesn't require emotional attunement. It requires execution. And that doesn't mean that care, empathy, or humanity disappear. It just means that caring stops trying to do the job that clarity is meant to do. We all carry maps for how to get through life. And if you learned early that staying connected meant staying quiet or agreeable, that map will show up everywhere, even where it doesn't belong. The good news is that maps can be updated and trained to work together. And that starts with noticing, where am I coming from right now? And if you've ever wondered why staying quiet, over-explaining, or softening your ask feels safer than being clear and honest, that's exactly what we're going to unpack in my next video. So I'll leave you with this question. Where in your life are you waiting for emotional permission to do what you already know needs to be done to get the money? Learning to switch modes without abandoning yourself is one of the most freeing skills you can build, because your work matters. Your financial stability matters. And most of all, you matter.